Hey, how are you? All right, so this is the beginning of the autonomic nervous system. Now, when we talk about the autonomic nervous system, it's the nervous system that regulates physiology. And so if you think about that name, auto means self, and nomic means law. So when we think about the autonomic nervous system, what it is, it's the part of the nervous system that is ruling you, right? Yourself. So the laws about you. And that's where they get the name. And so when we talk about the autonomic nervous system, it is going to be relying on the sensory peripheral nervous system. So we have inputs, that we know about. You just took a test over this material, right? So we have the peripheral nervous system, and it consists of the afferent inputs into the central nervous system. And that's what the autonomic nervous system is going to be depending on. Information from you, inside of you, from your organs control, we said it's all about controlling physiology. But then when we talked about the peripheral nervous system, we had talked about the motor outputs, right? And we had said, what do they affect? We had said, well, effectors, right? And that would be a skeletal muscle. But now we're going to add something else. We have other kinds of outputs that are going to be controlling your physiology. And this is going to be what we call the autonomic nervous system. And so it's all about outputs. It's about motor type outputs. Now, the way it's done is, if you think about nerves send us, you send an output, and so it has some kind of an effect. And so when we talk about the different organs of the nervous system, we're going to say that for the most part, they're going to be what we call dual innervated. And so what that means is they get outputs from two different parts of the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system has two different divisions. We have the part we call the sympathetic division, and then we have another part that is called the parasympathetic division. And things that are going to be regulated, so when you say, well, what are we even talking about? It's things like heart rate, and it has to do with glandular secretions, and smooth muscle and cardiac muscle is controlled by the autonomic nervous system, and glands. I mean, so when we say what is going to be regulated, controlled by these two divisions of the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic, what is going to be controlled? Cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, and glands, secretions. Okay, so if you think about that reflex arc, we had said, you had an afferent signal in, and then it maybe an interneuron was involved, but then you had a motor output. And we had said you've got that nerve that is extending out from the spinal cord that is going to go to what? It's going to go to a skeletal muscle. When we're talking about somatic, peripheral nervous motor system outputs. So when we talk about the outputs, though, for the autonomic nervous system, it's a little bit different. We're going to talk about how, I have some slides here, and I'm going to show you one of them where we can see the difference, and this is in your slides, but what the heck, I'm at school, so I might as well use all the tools, right? So here we have it. Let's see if you can see this. Okay, so up at the top, that is a motor output, a somatic motor output. And now look below here. what do we see here? What is different here? We see one neuron to what we call a ganglion, and then another neuron to the effector. So when we talk about almost all, the autonomic nervous system has lots of exceptions, but when we talk about almost all of the outputs from the autonomic nervous system, there'll be one exception to this. It will always, with the one exception, involve two neurons. And that's different from the motor outputs from the spine to a muscle is just a single neuron. And so when we talk about the autonomic, when we talk about the autonomic nervous system outputs, we're going to talk about there being two neurons. And what does that mean? That means along the way, you have a ganglion. So where you are going to have a synapse. Okay, so maybe this is a better way to do this. If you look at this, we have what we would call the presynaptic neuron. And then we have the second one, which is the postsynaptic neuron. So with the autonomic nervous system, we're going to have two neurons on the pathway out to the effector. And what did we say the effectors are? We had said it's cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, or glands. And in the example we're looking at, oh, look, cardiac muscle. Yeah. All right, so the very first slide, we have a simple summary slide, and we can look at it, and here it is. That is the autonomic nervous system. And we have the two different divisions. We have the sympathetic division on this side and the outputs of the parasympathetic division on that side. Do you have any questions? I bet you do. It's complicated, I know. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the two different pathways. And so when we are talking about these two different pathways, we had said that it involves two different neurons, we're going to talk about the preganglionic neurons and the postganglionic neurons. And we had said the preganglionic neurons are going to extend from the central nervous system out to a ganglion in almost all cases, one exception. And then it's going to have a synapse at this ganglion, which is outside of the central nervous system. And it's going to then continue sending its signal forwards to an effector through the postsynaptic or postganglionic neuron. Okay? So let's see, I'm going to flip my slide so I can see what I should talk about next. All right, so I said we have two different divisions. We have a sympathetic division and we have a parasympathetic division. And what's interesting is you can't say one of them stimulates stuff and the other inhibits. Now, because they both are stimulatory to certain organs. But as a sort of a more often, the sympathetic division is going to be the one that is pushing up physiology, and the parasympathetic division is going to be pushing it down, slowing it down. So what we say with any given organ, in most cases, again, it's not always the case, but in most cases, one of the divisions is going to be stimulating, and the other outputs from the other division is going to be inhibiting the physiology. What is this like? You ever see somebody driving down the interstate, going up a hill, and they have their brake lights on? And so you say to yourself, what in the world are they doing? they've got their right foot on the accelerator and they must have their left foot on the brake. That's what we're talking about here with the autonomic nervous system. One division is on the accelerator and the other division is on the brakes. Okay. In most cases, there's exceptions to everything I'm saying here. The autonomic nervous system will make you crazy. So what does that mean? That means one division with any given physiology, in most cases, one division will be excitatory, pushing the neurons to action potential, and the other division will be inhibiting this process. All right, so we made it here to 10 minutes, and oh my gracious, we're already, it looks like 6 slides in. These introductory slides are much faster than some of the others that are coming up. So anyway, we have dual innervation, and that means one division is excitatory on a physiology while simultaneously the other division will be inhibitory. All right, I'll be right back.